Welcome to our dream building class. I'm Angie Lehman, one of the Living Well Now leadership. This is a monthly class that we have every month. That's why it's monthly. And we have a great time goal setting with each other. We review the months before, we talk about what's coming up, we dream together and inspire one another to achieve our goals. And we're really excited to have Allison Nielsen here tonight, who is an executive with Young Living, who is going to teach us one of the most important strategies that you can have when getting your business off the ground and started, and that's keeping track of your abundance from month to month. So there's actually a form that you can fill out called the Abundance Tracker, and if you don't have a copy of that, make sure you get one from your sponsor or the person who invited you to watch this video so that you too can start tracking the information that's going to help you seriously build your business. So Allison, thank you so much for being a part of this tonight. I know that when you first started working with this, it really transformed your understanding of the business and therefore how you kind of set your own goals and found success. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. First, I brought some clarity because this is going to be a tough one. Lots of numbers.
I definitely need that.
I will say that my first dream building session was, I think, looking at just back at my abundance tracker, I think it was August going into September. It was where I met actually Patty and Marla for the first time. But I remember sitting at that dream building session and having my pretty blank abundance tracker. I had 2 months of history and I didn't really know where to go in terms of setting new goals because you don't know what you don't know. And I remember asking you and saying, how much, how many? And it was kind of like, well, what do you think? And so it was a lot more just going off your gut and your instinct and maybe what you've planned so far into the, going into next month. One of the cool things that I did shortly after I learned this whole math spiel was that I went through and I did a whole year's abundance tracker based on my averages. And like I said, these were my first 4 months of my Young Living business. And so to see those numbers at the end of a year was really inspiring. I remember telling Angie and being like, oh my goodness gracious, because accidentally I've fallen into this business and didn't anticipate earning checks that could replace my former income. And so to actually see on paper that in a specific amount of time I could achieve that by doing specific things was really exciting and inspiring. And to share that with my team was really exciting and kind of to get us all on the same page. There are some other tools out there, apps that you can download on your phone that are super helpful in helping out with some of these numbers. You can talk to your sponsor about some of those alternatives. But as starting out, just starting, your business building, this is, in my mind, a must-have if you really are focused and determined to build a Young Living business. I think that you need to be actively filling out your abundance tracker monthly and adjusting your averages and setting and adjusting your goals as well. I found about a website called Wild Fast Track, and Melissa Pepping has a great call that was on Wild Fast Track about the abundance tracker, and so I was really interested to listen to that. Right now it's not on their website, so I don't know if it's been removed permanently. All the recordings are missing, so I won't refer you to that recording, but if you're ever on there, take a look and see if it's there.
Cool.
So in listening to her recording, she talked a lot about needing to know what your income will be so that she's had jobs where she lived off of commission, and if you live on commission, you need to know what you can expect month to month. And that really rang true with me. I have a little bit more of a math and science mind, and so that was very helpful for me. And so I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. And in listening to it and going through the math and listening to her call, I kind of dug a little bit deeper into it. But ultimately, where she's coming from is knowing your averages and then using your averages to actually project correctly. So in looking at your abundance tracker, I made a little note, a little sheet of notes here that we're happy to share. And I just put these top 4 months are my first 4 months in the business last year. The months aren't correct, but the numbers are. And so that we had some numbers that we could actually reference today that we were all on the same page about. So some of the things, obviously, in using our abundance tracker so we can project our income. and our growth, but also so we can look at trends. If you look at the abundance tracker, it's in 3 different sections. So you might call that seasons, or you could look at it if you wanted to break it quarterly, or if you wanted to, look at your summer and look at how summer was last year. So it's a really great way to be able to use it that way as well. And so some of the things that I do is as I achieved rank, I would write what rank achievements I got, so that way when I look back and I can look at success, I can say, oh, this is what I maybe did this month, or this is the amount of classes I held, or whatever little notes that I might want to make to myself I put on there. So you definitely want to do your abundance tracker in pencil, because you want to be able to erase and change things and up your goals as you hit them, and you want to keep going. So kind of getting into the nitty gritty. So the math piece it's a lot. It might become confusing, so please, if I tend to talk fast and not really take deep breaths. So, so please stop me if at any point I'm going too much. So just looking at the abundance tracker, the first line on the abundance tracker is our total members. And so that is our total members. That includes retail members, members that have not purchased, non-active members, and also our wholesale members. And so that number can be found in our virtual office. Just in our downline viewer. We do want to make sure that we're keeping our downline clean. So if you have members that are not active, you can actually email Young Living at duplicates@youngliving.com, and they may or may not help you remove them. It seems like sometimes they do remove them and sometimes they don't. So whatever the reasoning behind that, I'm not exactly sure why they do sometimes. But the next one is the people you have personally enrolled. You can find that number also in your virtual office under My Organization, and then Downline Viewer, and then Reports, and then select the Personally Enrolled option, and it'll show you how many out of all of your members you have personally enrolled. The next line is for your for new this month, so that's actually how many enrollments that you had in that current month. And then OGV, and so OGV stands for our Organizational Group Volume, so it's your PV. And that's your total group volume, so for all of your members that have made purchases that month. And then your next line is going to be your average PV per member. So that is the average amount for your whole entire downline. You want to find the average PV that they're all spending together. You're looking for an average PV per member of 90 to 110, and what that, or over 110 is great, but that's kind of your sweet spot. That's where you're supporting your team. You're making sure you're being a great leader and offering, helpful tools and classes and things like that to help keep everybody using their products and learning more and trying new things. It's just a great example of outrageous customer service. And then in growing your team, you're going to be able to duplicate that with your downline members as well. The last line is your YL check. And if you don't know how to find out what your previous YL checks have been, you can go and find that also in your virtual office under My Account and then My Commissions. So the first thing Melissa Pepping was really adamant about was that consistent activity equals consistent results, which will equal consistent income. And as we know, there's the ebb and flow of the year. I've definitely myself experienced how my business changes with the seasons and how it changes with my life and what I might have going on and my focus. And that's one of the great things that I've loved about this business, is that when I need to take time for myself and my family, or whatever might get in the way of actually working my business, I'm able to be able to step out of my business role and step back into my family role, or whatever the balance might need to be. But I will definitely say that when you are putting in the same consistent efforts every month, you do achieve great results. So the consistency is key. So how to find these averages? So ultimately, that's what we're doing, is we're going to be finding averages of our growth month to month. And then you can use 1 month's individual average, or you can average multiple averages to get a more accurate average. So if you had 4 months or you had a year's worth of history, you could do averages of all of those, or you could just do averages of maybe a 3-month period if you wanted to see a seasonal trend or something like that.
Let's begin by finding a percentage of monthly growth based on our total members. You'll need at least 2 months of activity to complete this step accurately. If you don't have that, feel free to follow along with the numbers that we'll provide in our example. If you do have at least 2 months, you can find your total member count in your virtual office. Here's our equation for finding a monthly percentage growth. It's our new number minus our original number divided by our original number. Now, what's all this supposed to mean? Well, here's an example. Let's say in January you have 5 total members, and in February you have 6 total members. Let's plug these numbers into our equation. We have 6 minus 5 divided by 5, and the outcome is 20%. So this is reflecting a 20% growth for our organization within the month of February. Now suppose we would like to find an average percentage of growth over a series of months. Let's use the months of January, February, March, and April for our example. Now we already know that in January we had 5 total members, and in February that increased to 6. Well, in March it increased to 8. In April we ended up with 12 total members. Now the percentage of growth between January and February has been 20%. Between February and March we increased by 33%, and in April we experienced a 50% growth. To find the average percent of growth over these months, we will take the percentages and add them together. So 20 plus 33 plus 50 comes out to 103. We then take our number of 103 and divide it by the number of items being added, which is 3. And this gives us an average percentage of 34.33, but we're going to round up to 35. As we continue with the presentation, feel free to use your own numbers that can be found in the virtual office. If you would like to follow with the examples provided, here are the numbers that will be used to help complete the abundance tracker. The OGV total will be 1467, the member base will be 15, and the current Young Living check will be $263. Allison is going to show us how by taking our 35% average growth and combining that with our member base of 15, we will successfully be able to project how many members we can expect in the following month.
And so when I take 35 and I multiply it by 15, that equals 5.25 new members for my month of May. And so then I would round that, and if you chose to round that up, I just follow math rules, so I would round that down. That probably is not doing myself a favor though, right? I should probably push it to 6, exactly. So for example, you would take your 5 plus your 15 plus your 5 new members, and then that way your projection would be 20. Okay, so that's step 1. So this first step is you need to find out what your percent growth for members is every month, and that's the first line you need to fill out in your abundance tracker. The next one you need to figure out is what your average PV per member is. You're going to use your OGV, and so you're going to divide your OGV for that current month that you're trying to find your average for by your total members. And so I divided 1467 by 15, and that gave me an average PV of 98 PV per member. Again, once you have multiple months averages, you can do a quarterly average or something like that if you wanted to do that as well. The important numbers are going to be our total member percent growth and then our average PV per member. Those are really the two most important numbers in projecting our future months. Because once we know how many new members we want for what we're projecting, for example, 20, if we're projecting 20 new members, then what we're able to do is we're able to take that 20 new members and multiply it by our average PV, which is 98, and then that will give you a new OGV goal for that month that we're projecting. Then once we have that OGV goal, you need to decide how many you're going to personally enroll out of the new members that you've projected. So if we're projecting to enroll 5 new members, how many of those am I going to actually enroll? I wrote a little hint here as one of the things that we like to stand by is enroll to, equip to. Obviously, you could say you're going to enroll all 5, but maybe that is realistic, maybe it's not. So a good starting point is always to say 2, at least 2. And so that's usually where I'll start, depending on what my gut says, or maybe if I have other things in the fire already. So with your personally enrolled, so then that's filled out. Your new this month is your first math. The math from the total members goes to the new this month, so the 5 would go to the new this month. And then the fun part is how to calculate your Young Living check. So to calculate your Young Living check, you need to figure out a value per PV. So each PV, one PV needs to have a value. So is it 10 cents? Is it 20 cents? Is it $1? And so then you would be able to calculate that. So to find that number, that's maybe, I would say, cents or change. And so what I did is you're going to take your Young Living check, so the $263, and divide it by your OGV totals, the $14.67. And so in that case, the decimal on that value for me was 18 cents. So that means that for every PV I sold or someone purchased, I earned 18 cents off of each PV point that they did. And so then you're able to look at your projection for the next month of May, and your projection of your OGV is whatever it might be.
So let's use the numbers we've been working with up to this point to find our check. First, we're going to take the 18 cents that we've decided is the value of each PV and multiply that by our OGV goal, which is $19.60. Now, given we hit our goal for that month, we can expect to see a paycheck of $352.80.
It's pretty exciting, and I will say that my checks have been very close to my projections, sometimes with less than $1 difference. Yeah, I think the biggest difference was about $5 that I had. And so it's pretty, the averages don't lie, right? I mean, it's not something we're just guessing, shooting at in the dark like I did the first time. And so it feels really good to actually have actual numbers and to feel confident that if I achieve the goals I've set for myself, my income will be whatever you've laid out. And the really neat thing is that you can then work backwards. Once you have these numbers and you have these averages, if my goal is to be silver and I need 10,000 OGV and I want to achieve that by whatever the month might be, I can then work backwards and start doing this math backwards and taking 10,000 OGV and figuring out if my average PV is 98 per person, dividing 10,000 by 98, and that will tell me how many members I need. And then if I can compare that to my actual members, then I can do the math and subtract that. And then actually make an action plan for myself to actually achieve that goal, or figure out what I need to do to achieve that goal. Do I need to do classes? Do I need to do more one-on-one? What do I need to do? And so it's really exciting, and you feel really in control of your income. I feel that I decide, obviously in this business, we're deciding how much our Young Living checks are going to be. But to actually see it on paper and to know exactly, in order to achieve this check of $2,500, I need to enroll this many people. But you know that based on the math and the averages that you just created. One of the things I have noticed as this year has gone by is that when I was first enrolling members and looking at the handout that I shared, I was earning greater commission checks because I was getting a lot of new enrollments because I was just starting out. And so as you kind of wear out your warm market and it's not so much about you enrolling and it's more than you're supporting your team in enrolling, you will find that your checks are going to shift, but then you're going to have new areas to focus on, like the Rising Star Star bonus is a great way to continue to increase your Young Living check. But I will definitely say that I've noticed my percent growth monthly has definitely shifted. I started off again like 22, or no, what was it? 33, 40. And I remember when I had my first meeting with Deb and we were talking about the abundance tracker, and some people in my group were like, wow, those numbers are really high. And I think that they're really high in the beginning for a lot of new members, because you have a huge community of family and friends that are excited to know what you're doing, and so you find lots of new enrollments through them. And that obviously shifts, and 5 years down the line, enrollments are going to look different for you, your personal enrollments, because it's going to be more of a supporting role.
It is a 4-year career after all.
Yes. And one of the things Melissa Pepping doesn't do in her conference calls, she doesn't talk about creating the average of growth for your members. So, for example, she said, if you normally enroll 200 members, you just add that 200 on to your ending number. So she doesn't have the math piece about projecting the member number. But for me, that was the biggest struggle, because I can't do the rest of the math really accurately, I didn't think, unless I had an accurate member count. Because then with that, I could use the OGV and multiply and do the money piece, find out about the check and all of that. So, but yes, the average payout per PV is a really exciting number to be able to have and know, so that you can accurately then project your check, which is exciting.